Good morning, Coach. How are you?
I'm doing well. Good morning, man.
When you're not watching football, music-wise or holiday spirit-wise, is the Christmas music on or not?
Not here in the office, but yes, definitely at home. I mean, there's usually music on at the house. My wife and kids are very much into music, especially Christmas music this time of year.
When did you have the lights up?
When do we have the lights up?
Yeah, how long ago, if they're up?
Just being the new neighbors into the neighborhood, we definitely weren't the first ones. I would say it's been probably just a few days after Thanksgiving, probably a week after Thanksgiving.
Have you received an HOA complaint against you yet?
For having them up so late?
Anything. You know HOAs, it can be anything.
Oh, shoot. I'm not sure why. I mean, I don't know. Do you have to have some complaints to fit in around here? I mean,
yes. Yes, you do. You have to have plenty of complaints.
Just wondering if someone was willing to turn in the head coach of the Cowboys for, the weeds.
The weeds in the lawn. Yes, the weeds in the flower bed, whatever it may be.
Yeah, I think we're pretty good there. It's a great neighborhood, but we're fairly new into it, so we didn't get into.
Are we poppy Christmas music, or are we kind of on that "Oh Come All Ye Faithful" kind of thing?
Traditional?
Yeah.
Very eclectic. I'll just leave it at that. I don't like this. Yeah.
So, Coach, big story is the NFL changing some of the COVID protocols. What are some of the biggest things that will impact you guys immediately with the way that you kind of have to conduct business?
Well, I mean, the information came down last night, so we were here as a staff just really putting our operation into virtual mode, which we've had experience from last year and really earlier this year we had the stretch here before the Saints game we were in full protocol mode. So it's we just got to do all of our meetings virtually this morning, and then the players will come in and practice, and then we'll do a similar format where we'll probably just come in and do all the on the field work and practice on Saturday before we depart for New York.
Have you guys had any new cases come up that would impact the Giants game Sunday?
As of yesterday, no. But I mean, the few individuals that have to test, for contact tracing will be, that goes on this morning. So I won't have all that information probably till about 10 o'clock.
What's been the biggest pain for the players, Coach? Is it just the amount of testing, telling them, hey, try to keep your outside the facility activities restricted? Is it the Zoom meetings? What's kind of been some of the tougher things or most annoying things to overcome for the players?
For the players, I'll tell you, I've been impressed with our players as far as the Zoom meetings. I didn't feel that way last year. I think, clearly we're better as a staff in the virtual mode than we were last year. So I think that's just, the experience that we had to go through. But so I don't feel like we lose a whole lot with the Zoom meetings because I think our staff has been creative. The presentations have, like I said, we're a lot more experienced and it was something that, was a focal point for us in the off season. So that part, the testing is, just the setup is pretty seamless. So I don't think that's a huge inconvenience. But I just think that anytime you change schedule for players is probably the biggest adjustment because so much that we do, particularly this time of year is about, routine and regularity.
Coach, in terms of the return to play protocols that they might be changing, are they fair, to do that in the middle of the season? Because there are teams that had players miss games that may not have to miss games now that were asymptomatic and vaccinated. Is it fair to allow it to change this mid-year?
Fair. That's a great question. I think, but I think we have to be honest about this challenge that our society's in with the pandemic. I mean, science is doing a very good job. I think trying to keep up, and I think the more you know about the testing and the numbers and frankly, going through it on a personal level, understanding the viral loads and how they measure it, and what is the threshold that, if you're still contagious, is it 10 days? Is it really 8 days? Is it is your viral level, you have to reach a 40 as opposed to a 35. So I think with all that, I mean, as they collect data throughout this pandemic, I believe you trust the science, and you just kind of have to watch the numbers and learn from it. And I think that's what the league's trying to do.
Mike McCarthy here on 105.3 The Fan. Coach, a few weeks ago, we were asking you just a general NFL question on how defenses were playing these explosive offenses of too deep or too high and making Mahomes or the Chiefs put together a 10 or 12 play drive, or test your patience in running the football. And the other day we were going over some info that teams weren't blitzing you guys as much. Has that been a pattern that you've seen from the Denver game, that teams are playing deep like that, forcing you to run, not blitzing Dak enough? Has that become a pattern for other defenses against you?
I mean, there's definitely been games that people have approached us that way. I think that they're testing our patience and and commitment to the run. There's been a few games there that way, particularly like in normal down and distance. So yeah, there's definitely some situational emphasis that lines up with the two shell, keep a lid on it type approach to our offense.
Coach, how has McGovern for Williams worked out for you guys in your mind since you've made that switch up front?
I think on an individual basis, I think Connor McGovern, he's done a nice job. I think like anything, you look at the challenges that he's had. He's definitely, he's an improving young player is the way I look at Connor. So the biggest thing we have going up front is just trying to get continuous starts, particularly at the tackle position. So the rotation of the tackling position due to injuries has really been our biggest challenge up front.
Coach, as Zeke rounds into form closer to being 100%, have you noticed any explosiveness has returned to him?
Yeah, I think Zeke's having clearly one of his better weeks. As far as how he feels. I like the way he ran. Yesterday in the full speed work. Thursdays are our heavy lifting practice, so it's the biggest workload of the week, and I think Zeke's clearly ahead of where he's been the last 2 weeks.
How's Pollard doing physically?
Tony did a nice job yesterday. I mean, he took all the reps that he was slated to take. So, really today will be a big day. See how he comes in here and how he responds to the rehab process and timeline to have him on.
Is that injury more of a pain management injury, or can he actually hurt it more?
I don't know, particularly, the specifics of exactly how his is laid out. But I mean, plantar fascia it's a very difficult injury to deal with, especially for a runner. Mm-hmm. I just think that, there's a process that he's going through, and he feels definitely better, this time this week than he clearly was last week. That's kind of where he is.
Mike McCarthy here on The Fan. Coach, I'm not asking this specifically to your offense. It's a football fan question, as Jerry was telling us the other day that, some plays were being saved or worked on for the postseason. As a play caller, I was just curious, how much turnover is there in new plays, or how many plays you are always going to rely on as staples, or when do you think there's a time in the season when other teams get reads on you and you got to implement? Do you implement 10 new ones, 5 new ones? Do you stay the same? How does that kind of work with play calling in the NFL?
Well, I think it's real important, through experience, and definitely they tilt, different directions each year. I think that's always the evolution of pro football, the scheme challenge in pro football. And I think you have to pay attention to it. I always have. I think clearly when you operate big picture, weeks 1 through 4, the average, and it's, we had a gentleman by the name of Mike Ayers in Green Bay that, he goes all the way back to Bud Grant. So he's been in the league a long time and has studied this a long time. And I think, so it's something that I've always continued to watch. And as far as the trends of what we refer to as unscouted looks. So, weeks 1 through 4, because, every team has the whole off season to work to prepare their menus of offense and defense and special teams. So there's on an average of, 30-35% of the plays in the game are unscouted looks. And that means you're really concepts you probably won't be working during the course of the week, but are probably a variation of a base concept. So I think you go through the beginning of the season, unscouted looks, and then there's a point where the change-up, occurs probably, weeks 5 through 10. And then, really, you get to this point in the year, people kind of have a pretty strong understanding conceptually how you want to attack the opponent. And that's why I think just the stress and the importance and the constant coaching each week on the individual fundamentals and techniques is so important because, when you get to December football, this is going to come, execution's everything. I mean, scheme is important. You can win the scheme challenge more earlier in the season than the end of the season. So I think the biggest thing is to make sure is I think you said core concepts, you keep them covered up with, with some window dressing and things like that. But at the end of the day, football still comes down to the basics. And this is the time of year that you have to be playing your best, best than that you did all year in the fundamental technique area.
Great answer. Speaking of December football, were you aware that this is when you turn it on? This is when you really up your game because this historically has been Mike McCarthy's best month as a head coach in the NFL. Is that a random stat, or does football really change aside from the elements and there's just something that you have a better feel for as you close out the regular season?
Well, if I could use that last answer again, I'd like to. I think it's more about the trends, and following it, and that's kind of the way I coach the whole team, and just because there are trend lines of production that kind of tell a story each year of who you are, and I always paid close attention to that because I think the challenges are different. For each and every team, but but just like you said, there's early season. You can win with more scheme, but by this point in the year, it really comes down to the fundamentals and the execution of the techniques, and that's really that's our plan, and that's why we're emphasizing as hard as we can, and it's the challenges too because at this time of year you're backing off practice time for the health of your team too. So that's always been a balance from the head coach position.
Coach, did you see the game last night?
I didn't. I got really tired. I was tied up here longer than normal on a Thursday night just because with all the changes to the protocols and so forth. And to be honest, by the time I got home, I forgot about it. But my understanding is, reading the articles this morning, I missed a hell of a game and a hell of an ending. We had it on here in the office, but we were working, so I really didn't get to watch it. Did you watch it? Was it as good as it said it was?
It was tremendous. I was going to ask you about, there was a play at the end of the half. It was a 4th and 1 from the 1.5, and there was basically no time left. And instead of kicking the field goal, the Chargers went for the touchdown at 4th and 1, didn't get it, and which I loved the play. And I was just going to get your take on the advantage of going for it there instead of making it a 4-point lead to a 7-point lead and kicking the field goal, which a lot of people were saying they should have done.
Well, what do the analytics say?
They say go for it.
Did they?
Yeah.
Good. I just had my media hat on there for a second. I think that 4th down conversions, it's a situation, but I think just like everybody, I mean, you're aware of what the analytics say, but also I think the momentum, the matchups. I mean, that's why you game plan too. So I think there's just a little more that goes into that decision, and I think when a coach does go for it, I think you have to respect that because he's just not. Most guys aren't just going off of a book. They're also understanding the momentum, the matchups, and so I don't know what led up to that, but I mean it sounds like a sound decision.
Coach, do you have to have an extra psychological trick up your sleeve against a team that's really struggling like this? You guys are a double-digit, favorite, and everyone's expecting the Cowboys to go in and just win this game to get to 10-4. Is that sometimes the most dangerous game to prepare for?
I mean, the only thing dangerous is to listen to you to explain how you view the game. I think the most important thing, especially this time of year, our goal is to have real confidence, and the real confidence comes out of how we play. And I don't really even care about the score. As long as we play the right way, our play style, which has been very consistent, but the discipline of being on the edge with the aggressiveness style we're playing, we want to be better there, particularly in the post and pre-snap penalties. We have to get rid of that part of it. But, yeah, I mean, division games, to me, have always kind of taken care of themselves. I don't know if I've ever even put a record, the records up of the teams when you're talking about them, because division games are division games. So really the records don't mean anything. And And the fact that they got these games in December, I think even adds more to it. So, we're going into this, it's winning on the road's tough, division game, and we're just really focused on how well can we play to, and get the win, but also grab this chunk of confidence that goes with these division wins.
Coach, have a great trip. Thank you so much for the time, and we will catch up with you next week.
Okay, thank you. Have a great weekend.
There it is.
Oh, there you go.
There you go.
There you go. Mike McCarthy every Friday. Thank you, Coach. Have a good one.
What? Okay.